Hi, my name is Caitlin Kobe, and today I am going to be talking about my favorite part of the brain, which is the hypothalamus, in just a few slides on why it's interesting. So, starting off, we have the hypothalamus basics, which is where it's located. So, it is located in a small region of the brain, right above the brainstem, and it is comfortably seated below the thalamus and just right above the pituitary gland, as you can see in the picture right there. It is structured about the size of an almond, and it's comprised of many nuclei, which work in tandem with each other to regulate and send signals for various bodily functions that we need for everyday life. And you can see there's a picture of almond there for size, which is really interesting. And another interesting fact about the hypothalamus is that it's basically our body's thermostat, which means it plays a very crucial role in regulating our body's temperatures. And sometimes, again, it is known as our thermostat of the brain. It receives input from temperature sensors in our skin around our body and to maintain a homeostasis of about 98.6 degrees. And whenever it goes above or below that, our hypothalamus and our body send the signals to us saying, hey, we're a little bit too hot, or hey, we're running a fever. And sometimes with that, it can make us feel cold, it can make us sweat, shiver, just to regulate our body's temperature, which is really interesting. And also, the hypothalamus also plays a role in fevers, which is really interesting as well, because when we get sick, we need something to fight off the infection. So our body raises its temperature to get any bacteria or viruses out, which is very cool. And if it malfunctions, we can get hypothermia, which is our inability to maintain body heat, which leads to very low temperatures, which is dangerous, and hyperthermia, which is the exact opposite when we're way too hot, and it can lead to very serious issues. And as you can see there, I got pictures of somebody feeling cold, somebody running a fever, and obviously a thermostat. On this slide, I'm going to be talking about how the hypothalamus is the master of hormones. And it's a key player in the endocrine system, which means it produces and releases inhibitory hormones that regulate the pituitary gland in our bodies. And what hormones per se? Oxytocin, which promotes bonding and trust, vasopressin, which regulates water retention in the body and blood pressure, corticotropin, which stimulates the release of cortisol in our bodies, and dopamine, which influences mood and motivation, and sometimes, on a later slide, even addiction, because you get those highs that you get from feeling dopamine. On this slide, I'm going to talk about how the hypothalamus is a key player in the fight or flight response, or fight or flight. Basically, the hypothalamus is a very important part of our limbic system in our body, and it connects with our amygdala to regulate our feelings of fear and aggression, which can then drive the flight or fight response people know so well, which is seen in movies, which we feel ourselves. It's really interesting how the hypothalamus is a part of that. And in the background, you could see you get stressed, you get dilated pupils, you get paler, flushed skin, and you're thinking, what do I do? The hypothalamus is a big player in that. Now, you also got to be thinking, why am I so hungry? Well, the hypothalamus plays a really big part in feeling hungry and if we're full. And it has hormones that are ghrelin and leptin, which regulates our body's appetite. And there are two very distinct regions to blame for this process, the lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial hypothalamus. And what's really cool is that the hypothalamus can also detect tricky and pesky nutrient deficiencies that we may have by making us crave salt in some cases, or even potassium in bananas. And you're thinking, why am I craving this? Well, it could be that your body's missing salts or sodium, or you're very low in potassium, and your hypothalamus is saying, hey, how about we start eating more of these things to help get our body into a more perfect state instead of us feeling all lousy all the time. And that's really interesting about the hypothalamus. And in this slide, as discussed earlier, like how the hypothalamus has dopamine associated with it and how it can lead to addiction. Well, as a part of the brain's reward system, which is heavily influenced by dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that has feelings of pleasure and reward, when that is used with addictive substances like caffeine, cocaine, alcohol, LSD, acid, things to name a few, it can overstimulate your system, causing a dopamine surge and intense cravings of that substance if you stop, in withdrawal symptoms, and very nasty things like that if you keep using and using and using and using the substance and the dopamine keeps rising and rising and rising and then falling because you just need to keep going into that pattern, and that is addiction. And the hypothalamus is a very big part of that. And that is the end of my reasons why the hypothalamus is my favorite part of the brain. And I feel like the hypothalamus needs to be talked about more with how complex and intricate it is and how it plays such a vital role in our bodies. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Bye.